We got Ryan here today from the Mind Squad. Thanks for coming, Ryan.
Of course. How's it going?
Good. Ryan, what's the name of your other YouTube channel where you do audio reviews?
It's called Super Reveal. It's pretty tongue-in-cheek name. Not worth explaining, but
Yeah, check that out. Ryan is an audio file, as he calls it, and he has a disgusting number of headphones.
I do.
Dare you even tell people how many pairs you have?
I mean, I don't even know, but it's probably close to 200 at this point. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you just
not exaggerating?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, oh, you do have like that big case of the wall of them that you showed.
Yeah,
me.
I've got a cabinet full of in-ear monitors. So I have a bunch here. I've just got a bunch in front of me that I can hold up, these little guys, right? So you can imagine it's fairly easy to hide your problem if you have just a bunch of these things like I do. So yeah.
But you don't like Bluetooth.
I'm not anti-Bluetooth, but no, I think the audio hobby is mostly not in the Bluetooth stuff, and mostly that comes down, honestly, just to like, I mean, there's part of it is like audio nerdness, and like there's loss of quality when you compress something to Bluetooth, but I think most of it, honestly, is just about the variety. There's just so much more variety in the audio file targeted stuff that's still wired, so that's where I'm interested.
Hopefully the sound is coming through nicely for you through my
yeah, your microphone sounds great. Probably sounds better than mine.
So, all right. So we got Tim and Elon bantering today, which is pretty funny to see. Yesterday, Elon and Luke were talking on Twitter. So that's always cool. Tim says, I used to think Neuralink was scary and dangerous, but then Elon Musk bought Twitter and agreed with me ideologically. So now I think Neuralink is great and want to have my brain plugged into the machine.
Okay.
It's a great joke. It's a great joke, you know?
Well, I mean, I think that, so click in, because this is actually not what Elon responded to. It's weird how Twitter displays this, because it looks like he's saying fire to that post.
Right.
But actually, if you click into the second one, I love how people try to find deeper meaning in shit posts. So click on that.
You're trying to trace where Elon responded
this
to?
is what I didn't get. Before I saw that Elon did the fire emojis on this one, where he was, making it clear that there's nuance involved. In any case,
should I click?
It's been funny because Tim's been trying to get Elon's attention a lot over the last, as everybody is, and he hasn't really been getting much response. And just in the last couple of days, Timcast people getting all kinds of Elon attention. So hopefully he'll go on the show, and hopefully we can build an interoperable bridge between Twitter and Minds.
Well, yeah. What I love about what Tim does with his tweets is he just says things to piss people off intentionally, and they always fall for it. Like obviously this, he may think that, the Neuralink is scary or whatever, but like he's obviously making a joke here, and then people lose their minds.
Well, and what's the joke here, right? It's that people kind of make these sorts of normative evaluations of things based on their affiliations, right? And less so about the content of the concept of something like Neuralink.
Exactly.
Which is indeed a scary technology.
And yeah, it's like you can see something, you have different shades in the hive mind, depending on how you want to see something, based on what people think of it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Elon has an army of yes men on Twitter now who are just like, it's not, Trump's not there, so you don't have Trump reply guys, you got Elon reply guys, and they're just sucking up to him all day, and feeding his ego.
He's had them for a while.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like it's reached new levels.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah,
particularly with accounts that we follow. I've just noted, but look, I get it. Like, I mean, why wouldn't you want to talk to him? He's doing the craziest shit in the world. So great. I mean, go for it.
Yeah.
So,
and if you think that Twitter was ideologically captured in the past, it's a white pill for a lot of people. And the fact that he's talking to people just on the platform, I think is super smart from a user standpoint, active user standpoint, but also it's just like, who, Zuckerberg doesn't take questions on, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like unique. It's a unique thing.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. I
Yeah.
mean, he doesn't care who he's talking to. He hops in random spaces. He just did a space with Eliza a couple days ago about child exploitation. And I actually have a conversation going with her about a way that we can potentially work with her on that and with Twitter, because, it really does need to be a network-wide effort to deal with that stuff. Actually, ironically, Facebook just open sourced a new detection tool. Eliza tweeted this morning, and it's basically a way to check media files against this like hashed database of all of like kind of like the most fucked up stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like what Apple had done, a year and a half ago, where they talked about iCloud, all images being uploaded to iCloud. We're going to go through like this hash check.
But the controversy around that was that it was from DMs. So I think that I don't see a problem with doing it for public content, because all that does is make moderators' jobs easier. And it doesn't mean that you need to ban it necessarily. It just means that you become alerted that you kind of have these matches against this database. So yeah, I mean, I think it can potentially be useful. Obviously, dipping into people's DMs and that's another level of invasiveness.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, I think that's where a lot of people are just frustrated with big tech, with the amount of resources they put into censoring, or what do they call it? What was the shadowing? The shadow banning, essentially, but filtering, what they call censor, whatever, filtering. They put all that into speech, and then you have like this terrible thing running rampant.
I mean, I have not been following this discussion, this part of the discourse on Twitter. I would find it hard to believe that they're not doing something about it, right? So it's just kind of I assume a matter of degrees and how much attention and effort you're putting into it is certainly up for debate. Like I understand why people might be upset that there's not enough attention, but I would guess it's not like a black or white. They're just not doing anything.
No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. It's very kind of convenient for Twitter management now to kind of act like they're the saviors coming through and actually tackling the problem. But that being said, I do think that there's a cultural shift happening on Twitter, and say what you want about Yoel's past tweets and even his PhD thesis about Grindr and youth and everything, but the reality is that there's it seems that the line is in a different place for new Twitter than it was for old Twitter. That doesn't mean that they didn't have robust tools for detecting this stuff earlier, but it means that maybe their line was way different and they were letting a lot more fly.
Yeah, like Yoel's stance was
possible.
Kids are going to be on Gitter anyway, so we need to make it safer. Or not Gitter, sorry. Grindr, yeah. Is that, I couldn't figure out like what.
Yeah, that's basically what he's saying. He's saying that like because they're there anyway, you might as well like create ways for them to connect on Grindr. But that's just not, like, Grindr is a hookup app.
Right.
It's one thing if you have an app that is initially framed as, something more neutral.
Like Facebook.
But, like Facebook. Exactly. Yeah, like I think it'd be much more appropriate to say, okay, yeah, let's connect, LGBT youth on Facebook than Grindr, where it's a completely different context.
Yeah.
It's not like Grindr is gonna pivot into like some mainstream, like, I mean, it is mainstream, but I don't think they're gonna pivot to being like commonly accepted where like anybody would just sign up for Grindr.
Exactly. Exactly.
In like the same way that Tinder maybe like initially was known as, primarily a hookup app and then kind of eventually turned into, I mean, maybe it's still a hookup app, but it's a little bit more understood to be, yeah, you can just find dates on Tinder, I guess. I
mean,
wouldn't know.
Yeah, I think that Tinder and Grindr are in the same boat where they're not getting out of the boat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the boat that they're in. Does that mean that you can't like do professional networking on Grindr or Tinder? Yeah, you can. You probably could like meet people in more of a platonic way, but yeah, I mean, it's just sort of an odd. It's just an odd direction to pick, and then some of his other tweets are just bizarre. But I don't know.
It's always weird when you start bringing the kids into any of these, adult concept things. Like, I think the position should have been, look, if kids are on Grindr, how do we get them off? Like how do we, prevent them from getting? I think that was a much better question. That's why I didn't really understand. Like, it's like, well, they're on there anyways. Let's make it a safe space for them. It's like, I think that's a wrong angle to take.
Yeah, again, I'm not super familiar. I haven't been following that specific discourse, but it doesn't sound to me too different from like the discourse of, should sex education be a part of normal public schooling, right? Because like a lot of that conversation is the same thing. It's like kids are going to be doing it. Should we be telling them how to do it safely, or should we pretend that it doesn't exist and tell them not to do it? Like they're different strategies, and I assume we've been doing sex education in schools long enough that you should be able to do some studies on how effective it has or hasn't been.
Yeah,
not something I'm familiar with.
Yeah, education's one thing, like,
Sure.
crazy hookup app, and that's, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
they're just like different worlds.
It's also like sex, traditional sex education with like diagrams of like, blueprints of, genitals versus kind of what the type of stuff that you're seeing now, where it's like, I forget what was there was one the other day where the dean brought in like sex toys.
Butt plug Dean.
Yeah, butt plug Dean. Yeah.
Veritas uncovered. Yeah, he's talking about all the children are passing around butt plugs and dildos, and it's just a great time.
And I mean, again, like to what Ryan's saying, like it is in that, like, you can't stop it, but like kids are gonna be finding out about that stuff, but it's like let them find out about it their own way. I don't know. I don't.
Can it be age appropriate? It's like when they're age appropriate, they should be more educated, right? It's like the whole thing in Florida that people were freaking out about was kindergarten through third grade. He didn't want people educating children from kindergarten through third grade. Like almost anybody can get down on that. Like, where is it appropriate to educate a third grader about sex?
Right.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I think this kind of comes into just like we as a society and, especially America, right? We generally assume that up until the age of 18, like those kinds of questions are generally best answered by parents and like letting people kind of make decisions for themselves. And that is somewhat in conflict with the idea of public education where, you've got a curriculum that's more or less standard across the country. And that's where these sorts of, these conflicts kind of come to a head. So it's unsurprising, I suppose. It maybe not quite the exact same thing on something like Grindr, but maybe we're talking about Twitter policy. Like that's a little bit closer to something like public education policy.
Yeah,
it affects everybody.
He just like picked the absolute worst app to make the example. You know what I mean? Like if it was, if it's Facebook, if it's Minds, if it's like, hey, we need to keep children safe and keep, whatever. But like Grindr, it's like that's so easy to be like, hey, kids should not be on Grindr. Like,
so I'm sure some people would argue kids shouldn't be on Minds. No.
Yeah, no. I mean, kids can't be on Minds. You have to be at least a teenager to be on. So, all right. Well, let's switch gears to another super fun taboo conversation.
Great.
We got Malone and McCullough back on Twitter. Hopefully some juicy COVID Twitter files are coming out soon, but it's just like, it's interesting that this just sort of randomly, they randomly get reinstated. there still hasn't. They did retire the COVID misinformation terms. That's the only actual that I'm aware of change to the terms that they've made since Elon came in. And there's still just been no announcements about, more mass reinstatement under like a specific and like clear process. So I think this is good, but it's also like kind of annoying that it's just arbitrary and randomly happening.
Yeah. Agreed 100%. That's what I was thinking too, because I found out they were back this morning, and it's like hard to know like exactly why. McCullough looked like McCullough thanked Elon. I don't know if there's like some discussion behind the scenes, where it's like they decided, but yeah, it's like, what is the appeal process? It's really frustrating. I did email Ron Coleman to come on the podcast because I'd like to pick his brain on this as far as from a legal standpoint. But yeah, it's white pills, they're back, but like, how do we, like, what is the process?
What's the legal angle there that you're curious about?
So Ron's been dealing with, a lot of people that have been banned on Twitter, and the way old Twitter worked was it's like you get permanently suspended, you don't have a recourse. They kind of have an appeal process, but a lot of times you have to take these to court. So like Alex Berenson obviously went to court and won. Someone like Megan Murphy went to court and lost. There's a lot of money that you have to invest in these proceedings. And I was kind of wondering, like, what the change has been, if any, like with Twitter, with Elon taking over, like, are they settling some of these disputes? Are they letting people on to get rid of some of these lawsuits? Like what the, kind of what he's seeing from on the ground.
One thing I wanted to just pop back to, just on the Yoel note, that I think is important. Can you just search Yoel on Twitter? Just on Twitter. Because, you see the mainstream media coming out with these articles like, oh, he had to flee his home because he's being, mass harassed. No, don't go to his page. Just search, search his name. Yeah. Gotcha. I just want to see kind of like, because obviously the sentiment is bad, and he, essentially probably is getting harassed after all of this stuff comes out about him. And I'm just curious what you guys think about, these disclosures and essentially like doxing a lot of people involved. And, I am pro Twitter files, and I could never be turned. I think that it seems, I don't understand why they're showing the names that they are showing. Like, they're showing some moderators' names and not others. And I don't know how they're kind of choosing which ones to show. But, people's lives are definitely being ruined. I mean, Vijaya and Yoel are, they're probably going to get cushy jobs from the mainstream media. But they're screwed in public life. God, I would not want to be in their shoes.
As far as how I think, Weiss and Taibbi, I think right now they're trying to do their best with something that's never been done before. So it's kind of like, going through something that, you don't necessarily know what the rules are, and maybe, accidentally some of the moderators have been released or whatever. But someone like Yoel, like he knew, like he should have been operating, from a standpoint of not having to worry about if this stuff went public. And, he just made so many bad decisions. So it's kind of like public opinion. I don't agree with people like doxing and harassing and things like that. But as far as, getting ratioed in the public square, I think it's totally fair game.
This kind of comes down to like journalistic standards, right? So it's like I'm sure Barry and Taibbi have like their own journalistic standards about, if I've got secret documents, like in which cases do I name people, in which cases do I not? And it might come down to, was this person publicly notable and before this happened, right? And then in that case, it maybe that's the standard.
Yeah,
whether or not they name them.
Yeah, and when you're managing a platform that literally empowers journalists and stories and stuff, you have to like expect one day that sword's going to get turned on you. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, maybe, but yeah, I mean, there was also all that stuff that was coming out, when the Twitter deal was in limbo, all those tweets or those like DMs
yeah,
that were coming out. And that was like kind of shocking. It was like, wow, I don't think either of the people that are having this conversation were at any point thinking about or even considered that it was possible that at some point these would be aired out in public. And that's,
Wait, you mean the texts from like between Elon and different people?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was pretty wild. And like, I don't know. I'm sure it made other people start, being concerned about like, okay, what did I put in
Absolutely.
DMs in the past? And like,
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Like when you work for a company, all of that stuff is subpoenaable.
yeah,
And so you do need to be aware that it's like a quasi, it's not a public space, but like other people in the company could leak it, a subpoena could request it. And so, yeah, I mean, I do agree with the attitude of, it's sort of an unfortunate reality that we have to do this, but kind of, in private, like living in a way that you would be comfortable if it went public.
right. That's like the best. Yeah, that's how I always operate. It's like if I'm going to write an email, I know there's a chance someone could share an email, someone could share a tweet or DM or whatever. But the
Right.
ultimate irony is, Yoel and the rest of the tweet could read your stuff at any time they wanted to. So it's a little bit of nice, sweet, poetic justice that we could read some of their stuff because they have access to your stuff, your private, quote unquote, private stuff whenever. So I like this angle. I don't know if you guys, so like, obviously we're talking about Twitter files now, but I'm hearing more people talk about, wait for the Google files or the Facebook files or whatever. Like, if you
It's
think
never going
Twitter,
to happen.
Yeah, Google and Facebook files are the last two to emerge.
There's no chance you could not even buy those companies.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
the
look,
reason the Twitter files are coming out is because leadership changed and they have like an invested interest in this stuff coming out.
right.
and Elon is who he is, right?
Yeah, it's literally a freak occurrence. I think that the forces aligned to even make something like this possible because I guess he just fell off the richest person in the world. But so you have one of the richest people in the world buy one of the largest social networks. And yeah, like want to be more transparent, I guess. To other people's point, we'll see if he releases Twitter files of his own communications. But you couldn't buy like no one has enough money to buy Google.
Right.
There's probably not a person who could do that. So we're not getting Google files unless it's a whistleblower.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I just because I've seen this angle. This is what the mainstream media is pushing. That these moderators are being harassed just for doing their job, and they're not bringing up the fact that Twitter literally lied to everybody about shadow banning.
Yeah. And took livelihood away from some people. I mean, whether you like it or not, like Twitter, Facebook, all the social media apps like are needed to grow whatever businesses that you're in, and it's kind of like taking their, ability to make money away in a sense. So I don't feel bad. They should have been operating with transparency from the beginning. This is kind of just the other, and it's like one of those things too, where maybe, he's getting threats today, but how these news stories go, everyone will move on to something else.
I mean, everyone gets threats is the thing.
Like,
like,
right.
look at Tim.
Yeah.
Literally had someone break into his house and he's been swatted 20 times. You think that Elon and all of these people aren't getting constant death threats? Like, guess what? If you're a public figure and you're kind of involved in the discourse like that, it's like it doesn't make it okay, but it's like it's happening to everybody.
Yep.
Right. Like it's not good that Tim Cass is being swatted, but you're basically saying that the fact that that can happen does not mean that what preceded that is necessarily bad, right?
It's also
Being public
not
figures.
Elon's fault that it's
Right.
happening. You know, it's like, yeah, he's releasing tough information about these people, but you know, this is the whole kind of blurry line that the Twitter mods are trying to say about incitement.
Yeah.
They're trying to basically make, you know, incitement this like coded thing. Like they're trying to make it indirect. They're trying to put responsibility on somebody, you know, like Elon, who may be talking about, you know, a certain topic, and then, you know, it's stochastic terror.
Yeah. That's
Suddenly,
right.
yeah. Everything is stochastic terror, because guess what? There's some indirect reaction that someone could have from listening to this podcast, and suddenly someone listens to this podcast and, you know, they go off the wall for some reason.
Yeah, that's the whole argument. It's like, is the notable person responsible for their audience? And I've argued against this forever. And it's just like the platforming argument. It's like, quote unquote platform. If you bring someone on the platform, you automatically agree with everything that person stands for. And that's wrong too. Like, yeah, we have to have this like division. People have to take responsibility for their own actions. You know, if someone's crazy and they heard Tucker Carlson or Cenk Ungar say something and they go do something crazy, they have to take it. It's the responsibility of the person, you know. I think that's what we're kind of missing. It's like we want to say, oh, Elon's guilty for releasing these files and getting Yoel in trouble. Well, no, like Yoel should have thought of that before he did the things, you know. So
he's going to be just fine. You know, he has a whole huge community who supports him, and you know.
Do you think from a tech standpoint, Bill, someone like him, is he hireable in tech?
Of course, he's a celebrity. Okay. He's the you know, there's a lot of people who like what he did and like what Vijaya did. So, you know, we're seeing that very clearly. And I mean, I think it's incredibly problematic what they did. And there were no, you know, basically his MO was, and I think it was in Taibbi's original drop, where Yoel basically asked a team to go and produce a study for him, which would sort of justify this, you know, censorship. Wow. And but you know, the thing is that it's a very academic process, that like they did put a lot through academic processes. The Trump instance is really where they abandoned it all, and they kind of went against their own internal justifications. But like a lot of the time, I think that these their rationale was BS, but they did put a structure in place to rationalize their censorship, which is better than having no structure.
Right. The problem is, like, from an outside standpoint, the users didn't know what that was. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't very well communicated to people, you know? It was kind of like you did something, and then if you got dinged, you're like, oh, I can't do that. It was kind of like more of a trial and error versus, hey, this is what you can and can't do, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Coded incitement.
Yeah.
That's my phrase of the year so far.
Is that what you're going to be for Halloween?
That's like I will.
Visibility filters.
I have a whole year to think about how I'm going to artistically express that. So we'll do that at the mind.
Dress like a tchotchke, and you're going to incite me to want to pop you.
You'll be, oh yeah, inciting people to violate me.
Well, it's like I read this too, and I'm like, oh, Yoel Rath, Twitter, he's forced to leave his home by threats. It's like, how many times has Andy No had to leave the country? Or you know,
I mean, in either case, it's not a good thing. But yeah, it's just like it doesn't mean that what happened, what led to that necessarily was bad.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just sad ultimately. Like, you wish that, you know, you would see media looking at what's happening to Tim and like write an article about how unacceptable this is, that, you know, he is being targeted, or, you know, whoever's being swatted on the left or the right. Like, stand up. Journalists should stand up for journalists regardless of where they sit. And that's just not.
I mean, it kind of comes back to the original thing that we started talking about. You know, Tim Cass evaluating the value of Neuralink on the basis of sort of tribal, you know, preferences. And it's like, who are we concerned about? Who are we worried about? Are we worried about the doxing and the threats? Are we worried about the doxing and the threats when it's a person that, you know, we care about or are side with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what's even better, and what's even better in this scenario is they can villainize Elon Musk while doing it. You know, so he's the villain, and then Yoel's the victim. So that
your article about, you know, harassment is just, no one is going to take it seriously if you're only writing about this and you're not writing about other people. So, you know, they can go ahead and write it. And this is sort of what's happening. It's like they're just continuing to write pieces like this that aren't kind of backed up with any balance, and they're just irrelevant. Like, it's crazy to me how irrelevant CNN and everybody are. Like, they have been, because they didn't focus on technology for the last 2 decades. They just focused on writing, you know, kind of slanted media articles. You know, look at where the power is. Like, it's not even comparable how much more powerful Twitter is than any of the major media, who were literally, like, it's hard. And it's hard for people now to understand actually how dominant they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the alphabet media agencies were so big. There was nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. There was before the internet.
Yeah, before the internet, the alphabet media agencies were Twitter.
They were all there was. And then even for a while in the beginning of the internet, it was still no options.
Right. So it's just what, like, they have been demeaned to the level of like an individual content creator.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Clickbait headlines. Yep.
I know, that's crazy.
They're just not big. Like, their numbers are not big. There's like Taibbi, like Barry Weiss, you know, her new thing, the Free Press, looks really cool. I'm excited to dig into that more. She rebranded her operation to the Free Press. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure that her traffic is bigger than CNN right now. But cool. Well, I think we're good. I don't think we need to touch on everything. I can't even talk about Bankman. He's such a tool. Like, I just don't.
Can we just listen to the clip where he was playing video games? I think you'll get a laugh.
Oh, you have it up? All right, fine.
Yeah. So yesterday he did a Twitter Files. Brian actually found this. It was really funny. He did a Twitter Files, and he's getting like, he's hemming and hawing the whole way. He's like stuttering and stuff. And then someone actually like called him out on the playing video games. I don't know if you...
Hey, Sam. All right. I'm going to start with a really simple yes or no question.
Oh, boy.
Are you playing video games right now?
Oh, geez. I actually can't answer that question. I was so confident I wasn't going to be able to answer with a simple yes or no. Yes, I am.
Is it League?
It is not. No, it's Storybook Brawl.
Okay.
What was the game?
Storybook Brawl. I looked it up. It's got like 6 stars. I don't know. I've never heard of it.
No, so it wasn't even a good game.
I was joking with Hayden on this yesterday. Hayden's like, "Oh, it's an upgrade. He's not playing League anymore." I guess he played League and he was terrible. But apparently, through these interviews that he does, he always plays video games during the interview. So it's kind of like
what's like Destiny.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, I'm like, that's crazy. So, like, you know, in front of Congress, I'm like, is he going to be playing this? You know, in front of Congress?
Well, he's not going in front of Congress now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So some people are saying that. Some people are saying that was, you know, basically doing him a favor so that he didn't dig himself deeper under oath.
So I heard that too, and then I kind of challenged that perception with, it was like they were like, oh, the establishment's trying to bail him out, and I'm thinking, or is the establishment trying to protect themselves because they know they know he knows a ton, a ton of the players, and he's been doing these live chats, and he's been pretty public ever since the whole thing went down. So, is it more the establishment trying to protect themselves and by preventing him from talking?
Yeah,
more?
I mean, probably everyone who's ever been involved with him wants to shut the hell up.
Yeah,
because he
exactly.
just keeps, this is going to go down as the most bizarre media campaign post, scandal in history. I mean, he's just been going on these random shows, like having no consistency and just like open, like CoffeeZilla's roast was like insane. He just, it's just ridiculous that he put himself in a because CoffeeZilla's questions were great, and he got he basically got him to admit to the commingling, but like, duh, of course someone's gonna ask, like, get you to force you to ask the most basic questions.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me feel like he's even more of a sociopath after the whole thing.
So, I mean, I can maybe play devil's advocate with you a little bit on that, because if you put yourself in that position where it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, I always give people a lot of credit who truly don't, who aren't guilty, don't feel guilty, that come out publicly and talk about it. But I guess the question with him is like, is he just lying more, like in public?
That's the impression that I get.
Because if you back off, you don't do any of the public appearances and stuff, like that makes you look guilty as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that he is a very smart person.
Yeah.
And to just like act like he doesn't know anything that was going on, like in detail, I don't buy it. I think that it was a huge gaslight, but maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know how to program those. I don't even know how to program.
So I haven't been following the story too much, but I did just start listening to Lex's interview with CoffeeZilla yesterday, where they dive into it a bit. So I'm about, I don't know, maybe a third through that. So maybe if anyone else out there's not totally sure what we're talking about with this SBF character, that's a pretty good podcast.
It is
TLDR.
And just watching CoffeeZilla's videos where he, went on. I think they might even play some of the clips in the Lex interview. I forget, but
yeah, I guess what CoffeeZilla was doing was he was like doing he was in this live space, for instance, unannounced. Like, I guess they would just bring him in without SBF knowing. So I guess that was going on too. So he's kind of like doing gotchas a little bit.
You know what's funny? You see that girl next to Trey on the second line over, MOLL?
Yeah.
That girl, her name is Molly something. That is the girl who trolls our Wikipedia.
Oh.
It is. I forget her last name. She's like very anti free speech tech, and she goes by the name Guerrilla Warfare on Wikipedia, and she's basically just goes around editing all of kind of the free speech technology, and she's very also anti-crypto. But it's just funny.
Is she funny at least?
No, I don't think she's funny. I think that she is a extremely cynical person, not willing to see any of the benefits of any of this. It's like only seeing through like a very dark perspective everything about crypto, everything about free speech tech. I'm not sitting here trying to say it's all candy and fairy tales. Like, it's not. But you have she doesn't seem to have a nuance detector, and it's just like we are obviously not a far right site or company, but because there is a contingent of right wing or like ANCAP or libertarian, like whatever it is, suddenly she just wants to use that to label our whole company that way. And we've just had to be at war, like defending ourselves. And it's just like, how is that? Anyway, people are going to do what
we had Cornell West at our fucking event, for crying out loud.
I was gonna say we should invite her to Minds IRL.
Yeah, we should. Can't talk about it yet, but we'll be talking about it soon. But
Yeah, next one. All right, cool.
Yeah,
One
thing I wanted to bring up quick, Bill, too, before you hop. The other thing like that's happening on Twitter is Twitter Spaces is getting popular all of a sudden. I thought this thing was going to die. I thought this feature was going to die, but now Elon's like resurrected. I've seen like giant Twitter Spaces. I don't know if you guys have seen the same, but
yeah, I've been joining them. You know, the ones that kind of have been analyzing the Twitter files, and yeah, they're getting bigger, and it's a good feature. It's very like if they feel like intimate in this weird way, like when you sit in one, even though it's really not intimate, it's just like listening to a live stream, but there's something about it, just like you feel the presence of people in this kind of nice way. I think Clubhouse obviously created that feeling.
Yeah.
But it's been like Eliza and then this guy Mario who's been running these huge ones all about the Twitter files. And, you see a lot of, they're very unbalanced, I will say. Like I haven't seen a good one yet, which has like a great mix of people from both the left and the right. It's been very kind of skewed towards like fandom of Elon 100%. But it's also just crazy to me that, Sam Harris left Twitter and there's just like this. I can't. I'm still sad about that. I'm sad about what has happened to him, and I want him back because he had a huge effect on me. I've listened to probably 100 hours of his lectures, and I miss him.
Yeah, he went from like being on Bill Maher to arguing with Batman for speech, to like
Batman.
What's his face? I forget his name, but remember Islamophobia, call him Islamophobic.
Oh, Ben Affleck. Yeah.
Affleck.
Yeah, that was a legendary thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like back then he was arguing for speech, which was great, and everyone was.
But this is the thing; he still is. Like, it's not as if he's like completely anti-free speech now. He just like within this very narrow realm of topics, like specifically around Trump and COVID a little bit. He has like a different opinion, but like on other like if you're talking about Islam, like none of his views have changed, or like religious fundamentalism across the board, like it's all the same. So
right, but but the point was Affleck was saying because he's talking about those things, he's Islamic phobic. That was the charge from Affleck, and now he's kind of making the same charge to people. It's like if you talk about this, well, you're, you know what I mean? Like it's just an interesting like.
Yeah, no, I definitely know.
Yeah,
I don't. I think he's probably just burnt out, man.
Yeah, it could be that.
It's hard to. He has a lot coming at him, and so anyway, anything else anyone wants to touch on?
No, I mean I'm kind of hung up on just that insight that you mentioned, that the Twitter Spaces seem a little bit more one-sided than like maybe typical Twitter discourses. I wonder if that's something to do with the format of just being
or Elon.
I think it's not anyone's fault. It's just that whoever hosts the room has their network, and that's just who happens to come in. And so there's sort of this there's this problem where and it can be co-hosted. So I think that's an important thing to do, and maybe we should do another space. This girl Tara Bull. I just now realized that maybe that's why it's called that.
You said it out loud, yeah.
She is like a huge Spaces host, and so she wants to do one with us. But anyway, I think that in order to be accessible to both sides, you need to have co-hosts on both sides, and I think that might be where things are going wrong, and people are probably typically too lazy to make that happen. But like the thing is, who on the left is really like maintaining a pro free speech on Twitter?
That's the problem, right? Like, I try not to fault the host of these things because we know specifically how hard it is to get people from the left, unfortunately, to come and talk to people from the right or libertarians or whatever. It's just the way it is. Like, it's strange. Like, I mean, how many people have we talked to on the left that are like, I'll do it, but it's got to be private. It can only be me. I can't be up there with anyone. Or I don't like the people that you have there. And it's like, it's tough. It's a tough thing, and then now you're putting your Twitter profile behind it and, people, thousands of whatever, millions of people are listening. Yeah, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, it's tough. People are really scared of the guilt by association.
Yes. Yeah.
So
the stupid platforming argument, right?
But I mean, honestly, Elon, I think, has been smart to pick, Taibbi and Schellenberger. I mean, and Barry. Like they are all high integrity individuals. And, maybe he could go a little bit further and maybe give someone a little bit further on the left access.
Yeah.
That would probably be smart of him.
Well, he did it with Yoel originally. Like he was really defending him and saying how great he was. And then obviously all the crazy shit came out. But that guy's far left. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's speculation. We don't really know. I have to imagine that the reason that he stayed on was just because Elon didn't realize what had happened yet.
Yes, I agree.
So, all right, cool. Well, good stuff, guys. That was fun. Yeah, hit us up, minds.com. Until next time.